to get that going. All right. So as I mentioned before, we've got this meeting is going to be recorded. We've got a couple of mics and cameras around the room here today. They're pretty sensitive. They pick up some paper shuffling and any sidebar conversations. So just please keep that in mind as we engage for this hybrid meeting. We will take questions from anyone that joined in the room. And then we will also take questions remotely using the Q&A feature. So we'll ask folks to please submit your comments or questions through that. Hearing verbal comments over remote audio is unavailable for this session, but we're glad to hear from you during the Q&A segment at the end of the session. This presentation will be posted on NYSERDA's website within a few business days. And as I mentioned before, we've got Kelly Hammond, who is NYSERDA's events support on this meeting and will be available in case any technical issues do arise. We're going to go to slide 3 on the slide deck. If we can move ahead. Great. This is the agenda. So our lineup for today is as follows. We'll start with a pair of opening remarks from NYSERDA's President and CEO, Doreen Harris, as well as DEC's Deputy Commissioner, Jonathan Binder. Other topics will be covered by a deep bench of NYSERDA team members telling us more about funding assumptions, proposed programs, and we'll have a discussion segment with that Q&A that I had mentioned before. And a reminder that features on now, so please submit your questions if you have them. We'll queue those up. And then we'll wrap up with a look at some of our next steps for a comment period and what leads up to our NYSERDA January board meeting. So before we get to all of that, I first want to invite Doreen Harris to offer her opening remarks. Doreen.
Yeah, thank you, Frank, and good morning to those here in person and those joining virtually. I'm glad we're gathered here to discuss the future of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, and its vital role in our clean energy transition here in New York State. Certainly, I would say state action matters greatly, and ever more so, I'd say when states come together, which is what RGGI represents, and certainly has been instrumental in driving down emissions from power plants around the region. I'd say its impact, though, also extends far beyond the electricity sector. The proceeds from RGGI auctions have enabled us as a state to invest in a wide range of programs that are transforming our energy landscape, certainly from energy efficiency upgrades and renewable energy installations, but also to cutting-edge carbon reduction technologies. So these investments are not only cleaning our air and combating climate change, but they are also creating jobs and stimulating economic growth in communities across New York State. So today we're excited to share our proposed operating plan amendment, which will guide our RGGI investments for the next 3 fiscal years. This plan builds on our past successes while responding to the urgent need for deeper decarbonization as outlined in our climate law. Our focus remains firmly on maximizing the benefits of RGGI for all New Yorkers, particularly those in disadvantaged communities. And I'm particularly proud of the improvements made across the portfolio to continue exploring ways to support disadvantaged communities. We're putting a stronger focus on existing programs, reaching schools and buildings in these places, and also adding new complementary programs like community-based disadvantaged community engagement to broaden our impact. The transportation sector is another major focus for us, and we're continuing our commitment to supporting the transition of our vehicle fleets to electrified low-carbon alternatives. We also have proposed climate resiliency implementation planning, which helps ensure the durability of the clean energy investments we make, regardless of the sector. So your feedback is invaluable as we refine this plan to ensure that RGGI continues to deliver meaningful results for all New Yorkers. And we're eager to hear your perspectives and engage in a productive dialogue today. So with that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to DEC Deputy Commissioner John Binder, who will share some perspectives as our regulatory partner in the RGGI initiative. John?
Thank you very much, Doreen. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you, albeit virtually. and with our partner, NYSERDA, like you said, Doreen. You're our partner on this RGGI program, but in so many other things that we're working on together to reduce emissions and address the climate challenge. I want to share some of New York's progress in reducing climate pollution through RGGI, and also anxious to hear your thoughts on our plans for the future. As hard as it is to believe, we are now celebrating over 15 years of RGGI's successful cap and invest approach to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in New York and in our neighboring states as well. Together, we have cut New York's power sector emissions of carbon dioxide by more than 50%. And we've done this by establishing regulations that set limits on pollution while also making investments through this operating plan process in parallel with so many other critical policies at the state level and commitments to implement the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. To date, RGGI auctions have generated over $2.5 billion that has been and continues to be invested to benefit our state's consumers. The operations plan that we're discussing today directs these investments to reduce emissions with, as Doreen said, special emphasis on benefits for disadvantaged communities. Just yesterday, we held our last auction, our last RGGI auction of 2024, and the 66th auction since the launch of the RGGI program. Tomorrow, we will be announcing the results, so stay tuned for that, because we're going to be continuing to direct these investments to reduce emissions in alignment with the Climate Act. So while today's discussion is going to focus on New York's investments under the RGGI program, I do want to also note the importance of keeping the RGGI program strong and reflective of the times that we are in. We're doing that through the ongoing program review process with our RGGI partner states. As Doreen said, the importance of working together with other states is more clear now than ever. So through this program review process, New York is seeking to continue the strengthening of the RGGI program to further reduce greenhouse gas emissions and make more meaningful investments in our ongoing clean energy transition. And finally, I do have to mention, given the coming changes at the federal level, RGGI continues to show the power of state action. Again, particularly when we act together with other states, the power of this action to address our climate challenge. So whether in coordination with or in contrast with changing federal administrations, New York and other states will remain a force for climate progress, no matter what direction the federal government may take. And the input that we're going to be receiving today from all of you is a critical part of this process. So thanks for being with us today and for providing your input. I'd now like to turn it over to Pam, NYSERDA's Chief Financial Officer, I believe, who will be discussing funding assumptions, proposed investments, and RGGI investment strategies. Pam?
Thank you, John. Yes, and that was the correct title at last check. So just as a frame of reference, our funding assumptions are basically broken down into two components. For the fiscal year 26 through 28, we are planning conservatively and consistently with how we've done so in the recent past auctions. So we are estimating the allowance price going forward based on the average of the past 10 auctions proceeds prices. So that's running from June 22 auction to the September of 2024 auction. That brings us to a blended allowance price of $15.71 over the next 3 fiscal years. We've also included the updated fiscal year 25 operating plan budget. That one has the benefit of being informed by the 2 previous auctions this year, which are now in the rear view mirror. So we've taken those actual prices combined with the 1571 placeholder that we're using on a go-forward basis to establish the updated allowance price for the current fiscal year operating plan. So that's $19.59. On a go-forward basis, what these assumptions translate into is an estimated amount of proceeds on average for the next 3 fiscal years of about $356 million. We can move to the next slide, please. And as we think about our investment strategies, sorry, I think we may have skipped. Okay, there's one more slide if you could go forward, Shelley, sorry. Thank you. So as we think about how we would propose to deploy those proceeds, we carefully considered the RGGI governing regulations. And of course, we focus on a comprehensive strategy, such as what you heard from Doreen and John mentioning. It is really designed to best achieve the greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. And we do so in 5 ways. So first, deploying commercially available energy efficiency and renewable energy technologies. That's really having an immediate impact on the communities around us. We combine that with efforts to build the state's capacity for longer-term carbon reduction. And then those are done so in a manner that is empowering New York's communities, so that we are working in partnership with and for communities to reduce carbon emissions and facilitate the transition to cleaner energy. We're also working to stimulate entrepreneurship and growth of both clean energy and carbon abatement companies. And we complement all of that with innovative financing solutions so that we can help increase the adoption of clean energy and carbon abatement in the state. So really a combined strategic approach. We're now going to share with you some key programs and the highlights of those so you can hear about how we are planning to put this in practice. And our immediate focus of our next program discussion will be on renewable energy. And so for that, I'm pleased to turn this over to our New York Sun team. And Max, I believe you are leading us off in this conversation.
Thank you very much, Pam. Next slide, please. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max Joel. I'm the director of the New York Sun program at NYSERDA. I'm going to talk about 2 program investments today, both of which are intended to allow customers who do not pay into the system benefits charge to access New York Sun incentives. First, the New York Sun statewide customer incentives. These allow customers residing in the municipal utilities or that do not otherwise pay the system benefits charge to access the equivalent New York Sun incentives of SBC paying customers, with the exception of LIPA customers, which I'll cover on the next slide. Next slide, please. The other program investment I'll discuss today is the New York Sun Long Island SEEF incentives. The SEEF stands for the Solar Energy Equity Framework. This investment allows eligible low and moderate income homeowners and affordable housing providers who are LIPA customers to access the New York Sun incentives using RGGI funding. Thank you very much. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Scott Oliver.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So the Empower Plus program, that's energy efficiency and clean heating and cooling for low and moderate income households. In the coming year, we will maintain support for LMI customers statewide to provide energy efficiency and electrification incentives. We will allow inclusion of customers in municipal utilities and customers using delivered fuels. And customers will be able to access incentives through Empower Plus, which provides comprehensive energy efficiency services for programs and qualified households. The next slide goes to Hafiz.
Thank you, Scott. I'll be speaking about the program investments we are looking at towards the energy efficiency and building electrification. This project focuses mainly on supporting rapid decarbonization and increasing grid resilience with our munis and co-ops. As we all know, in meeting CLCPA and the increased electrification and also DR integration that will be required, munis and co-ops face a new set of operating conditions, and to ensure that they still maintain reliability, this request is largely to fund assessment and analysis to identify vulnerabilities and also renewable energy innovation opportunities, as well as fund small-scale demonstrations on net zero technologies as well as deep decarbonization solutions. And the focus is significantly looking at where the technical architecture interacts with the dark areas also. That's it from me, and do I pass it next?
All right, next, I think we're going to have Jamie Marcotte speak to the Disadvantaged Communities Schools and Affordable Housing Program. Jamie?
Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Jamie Marcotte, Assistant Director for our Efficiency Planning and Engineering team. This is our Clean Green Schools effort that we've been supporting since 2022. We provide planning and information services to schools via energy studies, as well as competitive installation funding. We've received a couple of rounds of RGGI support, and it makes us able to serve schools that are not paying into the SBC charge, so schools on Long Island, and especially New York City public schools, which we have not been able to interact with previously. This would continue the success of that program, and we look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jamie.
I think I'm up again.
Yep.
Okay. So our energy efficiency building electrification, specifically our technical services offer. This consists of a few programs, and it's a cross-sector effort serving commercial, industrial, institutional, agriculture, and multifamily sectors across the state, informing existing buildings on how to reduce their reliance on fossil fuel and how to decarbonize. The program's been operating for quite a long time. Additional RGGI money is to supplement the CEF funds we have, as well as being able to strategically support those entities that do not pay into the system's benefits charge. Right now, the programs consist of our FlexTech program and our On-Site Energy Manager program that offers cost-sharing assistance under both. These programs have been highly successful for the past 10 years under CEF, and we look forward to continued success with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Michael, I believe you're on up next, and we can advance.
Frank. Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Reed. I'm the acting head of large buildings here at NYSERDA. So one of the long-standing investments that flows from the RGGI proceeds, next slide, please, goes to LIPA. And so the LIPA Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy funds enhances the portfolio of clean energy activities for consumers on Long Island. So this is approved by LIPA and administered by PSEG Long Island. Funding and reporting requirements are established through a memorandum of understanding between NYSERDA and LIPA. So that helps to ensure that the RGGI funds meet the requirements of the RGGI regulations. And these funds are used to support energy efficiency and clean energy activities, as well as advancing the goals of investments in disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. In addition, some of the RGGI proceeds will go to support multifamily energy efficiency and building electrification projects for multifamily buildings throughout the state, both market rate and affordable housing. This program provides technical assistance as well as incentives for building owners that install one or more measures, resulting in energy savings and reduction of on-site carbon emissions. Next slide, please. We use RGGI funding to support our building retrofit and new construction challenges, which is a portfolio of initiatives that are competitive challenges and demonstrate best-in-class design and high performance for new construction, as well as hard to decarbonize existing buildings. RGGI funding allows these programs to serve non-SBC paying customers on Long Island and in municipal electric utility areas. And you're not done with me quite yet. One more slide, please. We are also proposing to use RGGI funds to support an appliance program that will help deliver energy efficient appliances to low to moderate income homeowners and renters with integrated financing to help further reduce barriers and increase access to energy efficiency for low income renters and homeowners. And with that, I will pass it over to my colleague, Ka Wei, to talk about climate resiliency.
Hi, my name is Ka Wei. I am a director with the Clean and Resilient Buildings Unit, and happy to speak about the climate resiliency implementation planning that these RGGI proceeds will support. So as noted, these proceeds will be used to continue research, analysis, planning, and technical assistance to ensure that our clean energy and electrification efforts continue to deliver the expected benefits under changing climate conditions. One critical aspect of decarbonization is, of course, protecting our clean energy assets. And as we transition, we need to both work towards achieving a clean energy economy that is able to operate for the expected life of those assets throughout our changing climate conditions. This supports ongoing commitments that the state has already made under Executive Order 22, the Climate Act Scoping Plan, and the Governor's 2024 State of the State. And this will also ensure that NYSERDA's work has a clear strategy for integrating climate resilience and adaptation considerations within the clean energy transition so that these investments that we make today and tomorrow can continue operating and deliver the expected benefits well into the future.
Thank you, Ka. And we're going to shift to our next segment on innovative greenhouse gas abatement strategies. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague, Adam Reuter.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining us today. Next slide, please. So we are continuing to use RGGI funds to advance vehicle electrification. And there are a few different ways that we're doing this. One is through continued investment in our Drive Clean rebate program, which provides incentives and rebates for light-duty vehicles, as well as our New York Truck Voucher Incentive Program, which provides rebates for electric trucks and buses, primarily on the truck side. We are also expanding our investments on electric vehicles to focus more this year on the planning for fleets to help them be prepared and work through some of the challenges that may be involved with electrifying their fleets. So we've seen this as an effective strategy on the school bus side, and we want to be able to expand that to more types of fleets. We are also going to continue our work on building public knowledge and support for this EV transition, and working through local governments and other stakeholders to try to encourage more permitting, easy permitting for EV charging stations, further investment in the EV charging stations themselves, as well as further investment in electric mobility and transit options to expand that where those are not as readily available today. And I will turn over to James to talk about equity and climate transformation research.
Thanks, Adam. So I'm going to talk very briefly about our RGGI-funded Equity and Climate Transformation Research Program. We want to build on this existing research effort which studies the social dimensions of an equitable and inclusive transition in a manner that centers the lived experiences of underserved and overburdened communities and prioritizes beneficial outcomes for disadvantaged communities. We are actively recruiting an initial cohort of research projects that are interdisciplinary in nature and leverage the social science research community around energy social sciences. That initial cohort of research projects will be all about piloting this kind of new form of research in this research community to test initial research hypotheses, develop community-based research partnerships, and convene community groups and academics around social dimensions research areas. We're excited about the progress that we've made engaging with this research community and to continue this progress in transforming it into an initial cohort of innovative interdisciplinary research on energy social science. So I will pass the mic over to, I believe, Kevin Hale.
Yeah, thanks, James. Good morning, Kevin Hale, Director of Economic Development and Strategic Partnerships at NYSERDA. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this segment of the operating plan amendment. So the clean energy business development area invests in growing clean tech manufacturing and supply chains in New York State. We work very closely with Empire State Development, who many of you know have a broad mission that covers business attraction and investment across many different industries. Our team works with them to deepen and widen the bench that focuses on clean tech manufacturing. NYSERDA's efforts under this program invest in supply chain analysis and forums, clean energy manufacturing and recruiting and marketing campaigns, and planning assistance and analytical work to expand the manufacturers and suppliers in New York State who produce products and solutions that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Highlight a couple accomplishments since the stakeholder meeting we had last year under this area that was newly launched then. We worked with some professional consultants to complete a competitive assessment comparing New York State against 8 other states that are seeing a lot of clean tech manufacturing wins. And that gave us a lot of insights and intel on where to go forward. And we developed a marketing campaign to position New York State and elevate the assets that we have as an investment destination for clean tech manufacturers and innovators. And then we had some hands-on work. We had staff that worked with ESD and other regional economic development organizations that attended key investment forums where we surfaced 25 new clean tech manufacturing leads that show a lot of promise to locate and invest in New York State across battery storage, onshore wind turbines, and other areas. Going forward, some of the plan activities under this area for the period covering this operating plan are going to include sponsorships and participation in foreign direct investment workshops and summits to continue to elevate the benefits of investing in New York State. There we highlight many of the assets the state has to offer, including affordable clean power, access to one of the largest markets under our sealed CPA goals, and certainly the educational and innovation ecosystems that we have in New York State. We're going to continue and expand on our marketing campaign. We called it Build It Clean, Build It Here. And that's focused on, again, attracting investment and jobs to New York State. We've developed that in partnership with Empire State Development. And then lastly, we're going to launch an initiative to support planning and site development work across the state. And this work will work with regional economic development organizations to support specifically designed plans that'll meet the needs of those regional organizations. That's going to highlight their assets in innovation and manufacturing that they currently have. And that's going to work to attract clean tech manufacturing investments and jobs and position those regions to compete with other states to do so. In this work, we're going to have a special emphasis on supporting planning and site development in disadvantaged communities. So thank you. And I think with that, I'm going to pass it to Vlad.
Hi all, and thank you, Kevin, for that. I'm here to talk about the scoping plan implementation research bucket. So this category of investments supports continued develop policy research and policy analysis in support of policies incorporated within the scoping plan intended to fully realize over time the Climate Act targets passed in 2019. Research and funding in this area supports research and analysis that helps the state understand policy choices and resource choices associated with decarbonizing every sector of the economy, including power sector transition in service of the clean energy standard and 0 by 40 work, the state energy plan, NICI analysis and infrastructure support, and a variety of other efforts that support the state's long-term targets. Thank you.
I think I'm the next. So I am from NYSERDA's innovation organization focused on the advanced fuels. So in this proposal, we focus on the product development and demonstration for the advanced fuels, focusing the areas to support us transition away from the fossil fuels. As I mentioned, this program covers two types of scope. One is the product development, and the other is the pilot. Both of them will help us advance the technologies to produce the clean fuels using biofuel mass, different feedstock like non-food-based crops or waste or the other type of industrial residues to feedstock. So the demonstration program would cover the scope like identify the suitable pilot sites, the suitable feedstock transition pathways, engineering design, and eventually validate the different technology and different pathways. So that's a quick update about the advanced fuel, and I think I will pass it to Kelly.
Hey everybody, it's Kelly Tyler here. I'm the Director of Communities and Local Governments at NYSERDA. I'm going to be talking about the Clean Energy Communities Program, which will build on the capacity of local governments to spur community-scale decarbonization through three efforts. First, as we've gained a lot of momentum from the first round of Clean Energy Communities with over 900 actively participating municipalities, we want to further their efforts to drive deeper activities within their operations and the communities they serve. The initiative will expand its current framework to provide advanced decarbonization activities and policies for municipal and community projects. Local governments will be encouraged to implement streamlined and cost-effective actions and compete for rewards-based grants that encourage additional clean energy projects. Secondly, a network of experienced regionally based firms will provide local governments with the technical support to become aware of decarbonization strategies that make sense for them and guide them through the necessary implementation steps to take on successful action. And finally, starting in 2025, with joint funding from the Clean Energy Fund, and to allow for participation in non-system benefit charge paying communities, the program will add cohorts to educate municipal officials about a specific building policy or initiative and receive funding to support capacity and to plan evaluating opportunities to fund that work. Next, I'll turn it over to Adele Ferrante on workforce. Adele?
Thank you, Kelly. Good morning. I'm Adele Ferrante, Director of Workforce Development and Training at NYSERDA. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our RGGI investments to support developing a clean energy workforce in New York State. These funds are used to support the just transition of fossil fuel workers, as well as new entrants or new workers from disadvantaged communities to the clean energy workforce. So we're thinking about upskilling existing workers while at the same time we're funding programs to bring new workers into the clean energy economy. Funding supports pre-apprenticeship programs that provide direct entry into union apprenticeship programs. They also support union training for apprentices and journey workers, again, as we upskill and bring new skills to these union workers to support the transition to clean energy jobs. Some of the things that we fund typically include developing training curriculum, purchasing training equipment, training trainers, delivery of training, as well as internships and other real job experience as part of the training. Some of the other activities that will be funded through RGGI include supporting workforce development for residents that don't pay into the SBC charge, for example, folks on Long Island, developing a K-12 clean energy career awareness portfolio to really, again, think about building that career pathway for young adults. Wraparound services for individuals from disadvantaged communities where other wraparound services have been exhausted. So we're filling any gaps and addressing any barriers for clean energy training as well as clean energy job placement. With that, I'll turn it over to Anzala.
Good morning. My name is Anzala Lozine. I'm the Director of Energy and Climate Equity, and I'll be talking about the RGGI investments to support deeper investments in disadvantaged communities through the Regional Clean Energy Hubs, which supports increased engagement of the regional clean energy hubs in Long Island and New York City that provides information about clean energy economy, residential energy assessments, residential energy assessment, program referrals, including for incentives and rebates, and program application assistance, which also includes energy literacy workshops. This funding will also support language access services, translation and interpretation for all community-facing programs. The other piece that this will support is community-based disadvantaged community engagement, which will provide seed funding for under-resourced community capacity building, which will be channeled through community-based organizations. And this funding shall include community planning grants, technical assistance for equity planning, and technical assistance for community-scale clean energy and climate resilience project planning, including for projects that provide clean energy and community resilience benefits. The initiative will also allow NYSERDA to provide compensation for stakeholder engagement, including input on program planning and policy development, such as participation in the Energy Equity Collaborative and advisory services to NYSERDA initiatives. And with that, I will turn it to my colleague, Jen Manier.
Hello, I'm Jen Manier, and I'm the Director of Clean Energy Siting at NYSERDA. As many of you probably know, we have more and more solar, wind, and energy storage projects being developed across the state. So there's an ongoing, and I'd say probably even an increasing need for local government support. They need help with zoning laws, navigating the state level permitting process at the Office of Renewable Energy Siting, developing local permitting processes, and understandably so. They also want to understand the safety considerations associated with all the various and perhaps new to them technologies. So this initiative will provide that technical assistance, the education, the resources local governments need to support local clean energy development. This includes the solar, wind, and energy storage projects I mentioned, but also other emerging technologies. We'll expand the existing technical support network for communities by funding locally based support networks, including forums for community members and other stakeholders to learn and exchange information about clean energy. And finally, we'll also provide funding for technical support contractors with deeper subject matter expertise to help NYSERDA staff develop new tools, resources, and training. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to my colleague Corey to speak to climate action, consumer awareness, and education.
Thanks, Jen. I'm Corey Nakosha from NYSERDA's corporate marketing team, and I'll start by saying that NYSERDA Marketing conducts annual tracking study, measures the opinions of New Yorkers on topics related to climate energy actions and clean solutions. Our most recent study found that more than 60% of New Yorkers support the state's transition to clean sources. And while awareness, interest, and consideration of clean energy solutions has grown in the last year, many are still unaware of the rebate and incentive opportunities, including those in the Federal Inflation Reduction Act. With that, as noted in Bullet 1, we have broad level awareness and education efforts informing people of these saving opportunities to help them make energy upgrades for comfier and healthier homes. Additionally, as noted in Bullet 2, we're addressing the gap between people that want to take action but lack the clarity on how to do so. We have a large focus as well on targeted marketing to impact the purchase decisions and actions needed. With targeted marketing, we're not only promoting the benefits of technologies such as induction stoves, heat pump water heaters, and the importance of weatherization, but we're also promoting the regional clean energy hubs as local experts across the state available to help. Thank you, and next slide. I believe it's back to you, Corey.
Great, thank you, Corey, and thank you to everyone on our NYSERDA team for giving a quick elevator pitch of all that you do and make the most of our RGGI proceeds. Next slide, please. We actually just have a couple more that we're going to get to. We are going to pass the mic to Heather Clark to review Green Jobs, Green New York.
Thanks, Frank. Heather Clark, I'm the Assistant Director of Finance and Solutions. The Green Jobs, Green New York program was created under the Green Jobs, Green New York Act of 2009. It provides New Yorkers with access to energy assessments, installation services, low-interest financing, and pathways to train for various green-collar careers. Green Jobs, Green New York program provides low-interest financing for up to 15 years for residential energy efficiency improvements, residential solar systems, and other renewable technologies. The Green Jobs, Green New York Loan Fund continues to see an increase in demand, and the increase in the RGGI budget is to keep up with this demand. I'd like to turn the presentation back over to Pam.
Thank you, Heather. And so I think to round this out, just two more components of the directed funding. You can see on screen that we have a planned transfer to the Environmental Protection Fund. You can really view that as complementary to RGGI. I think we're in the third or fourth year of this. And for budgeting purposes, we are assuming that the legislature will continue directing these funds as they have in the recent past. As we also think about uses or potential uses of these proceeds, I want to highlight lastly something that has been put in place about 3 years ago that we are continuing forward on. If we go to the next slide, please, which is to ensure that we are setting aside a portion of these funds to be able to take advantage of various competitive grants, especially on the federal level, but not limited to those. We want to ensure that where opportunities are arising to harness, say, federal funding or even state or private grants that line up with the goals of RGGI, that we are in a position to do so. It's a fantastic way to leverage funds and actually achieve greater relative programmatic outcomes as a result of that. So we're planning for that, and of course, as with all of these programs, we'll continue to monitor over the course of the year as we see the actual proceeds rise. On that note, Frank, I think I'm handing it back over to you. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, and we'll stop right there for some discussions and some Q&A. And as promised, we are going to use this next segment to hear from all of you, our New York State stakeholders, as to your thoughts, your questions on what we've proposed here today. And as I mentioned, we're going to go in order. First, we'll start with folks that are here in the room. We'll take questions and discussion, and then we will go to some of the questions that have been submitted over the Q&A feature through WebEx. So if you are interested in submitting a question to respond to, or for us to respond to today, please drop it in the chat and we will get to it. And at this point, I guess we'll pass it to Connor, who's joined us in the room. Please offer your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Connor Bambrick with the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance. Really appreciate the presentation and all the work that's gone into this, and thank you. So I'll say that first. But given the lead up to this, since this amendment was only released, I think 2 days ago, I would, typically there is a short turnaround for comments on this amendment. I would respectfully request maybe that could be extended a bit to give us time to process and develop our comments. So I'll just put that out there. I guess, Pam, I'd like to start with you. So the assumption here is $15.71 for the allowance prices. I understand what goes into that, but given I think the last auction, I know there was an auction yesterday, we don't know the results, but the last one I think it cleared it close to $26.
Yes.
If we see that sort of continue, will there be, do you anticipate a mid-year sort of adjustment like we saw last year or this year?
Sure, appreciate the question. So I guess two things on that. The last two auctions were unusually high from a historical perspective, right? Partly because of the fact that the cost containment allowances were fully utilized. So we do want to plan conservatively. We also want to make sure that we have a clear line of sight to how those funds would be proposed to be utilized. So actually in the document, we've outlined a bit of a waterfall approach wherein we are identifying programs that we believe rank high on the list of most impactful to support the RGGI goals. So the intent is actually to get the clarity on that at the outset. I wouldn't rule out a mid-year adjustment, but that has not been our typical path. So we're going to put that in up front.
So I guess would it be helpful in our comments if we weighed in on sort of prioritizing where it's sort of the overflow?
I think certainly if there are questions around that, absolutely.
Thank you. And then with regards to you mentioned annual budgeting of 356 million, I think it was. Yet the budget for the coming year is at 508 million. So I was just wondering if you can explain that.
It's about a 4-year average there for the actual programmatic component, and that's excluding the directed investments and so forth. So,
thank you.
I think I got that math right, but we'll double check.
One thing that wasn't mentioned here, but I saw in there was an increase to the electric generation facility cessation mitigation program. And I'm just wondering what's driving that. Are there anticipated closures in the next year that we're aware of?
I can take that and others may want to.
Also, I'm sorry, and that funding goes to EDC, correct?
We do work through EDC on that. So what's represented right now is a best estimate of what we understand to be in the pipeline. I would note that that's something that can vary over time.
And I don't believe that has been increased. I believe it's the same from last year's plan.
I think last year it said 1 million, and then this year it says 8 million, and then for the next year it's 14.
I apologize for that.
Sorry, and I should add one thing on that, Connor, that is not necessarily tied to actual activities with underlying closure. Some of it is the time lag in the process of getting requests in for those communities. So it's both volume-based and timing that is feeding into those assessments.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I got a little list here. I guess maybe I'll go to Michael on the LIPA funding.
Yes, go ahead, Connor.
Great. So if I recall correctly, the funding that's going to LIPA, I think dates back to about 2014. And that was to sort of backfill cuts that LIPA made to its own funded programs. Do you know if LIPA has ever restored the cuts on their end, or are we still continuing to supplement?
We are continuing to supplement, Connor, and LIPA goes through a public input process for their annual energy efficiency investments. RGGI, it's not solely out of the RGGI money that they run their programs, but the RGGI funding helps augment and expand the reach of LIPA's programs, which are administered by PSEG Long Island.
But do you know if they ever actually restored the cuts that they made about a decade ago?
I do not know the answer to that question.
I guess we can follow up with them. Thank you. Not sure who this question goes to, but it's around the Empower Plus program funding.
Yeah, I think we had Scott Oliver.
Scott Oliver.
Reed, yeah.
Great. My question is, given the questionable future of federal funding, it's not a foregone conclusion, but there is a chance that some of the federal funds here might disappear. Is this funding, additional funding, adequate to sort of backfill any losses in terms of the federal funding coming in under the IRA?
Well, the amount of federal funding that we are expected to receive is much more than what's available through RGGI. That said, there's a variety of different funding sources that the Empower Plus program uses, including on-budget funds, CEF, and funds from OTDA.
Thank you. But there are federal funds specific to delivered fuels, right?
Yes, that's correct. Well, no, the federal funding is not fuel specific. It's It's just it's for all New York State customers, and it's meant as an add-on on top of the program. So the federal funding is meant to supplement, or not to supplement, but to be in addition to state programs. So we use the regular Empower funding at a base level, and then not supplement, but add on the federal fundings for extra measures that we normally would not cover.
Thank you. I guess next to Jamie. When it comes to the funding for disadvantaged communities for schools and housing, I think at the last operating plan meeting, it was suggested that the fund was fully subscribed and there were maybe applications out there that had not been funded. Is this funding level adequate to now cover all the applicants?
That's a very good question, Connor. It still will not fund all the applicants. Really, at the time cycle we're in right now, the 36 million we were granted in the fall, and thank you, yes, you were at the meeting for that, funded a good portion of the list. At this point, we'll be using this new RGGI funding to go out to solicit new projects. Those that weren't chosen in the last round are able to reapply though and get back on the list and potentially get funding. The other thing this funding is used for is for planning purposes, whereas the money in the fall was strictly for installation. These new RGGI asks would be split between planning and installation for those customers.
Thank you. And then on the Flex Tech Energy Manager piece, has there been an uptick in requests of those services related to Local 197?
Yes, absolutely. Both for multifamily and commercial buildings. In addition to an uptick in requests from those audits, which I will note that not Local Law 97 related, but Local Law 87 related, we did do an impact evaluation that found that the adoption rate of those measures in those studies, while mandated, was still as high as traditional flex tech projects. So we do think that those mandates are still resulting in actionable activities from end users. But we have seen an uptick in that. We've also seen an uptick in the cost per study. So additional resources beyond those provided by CEF would be helpful in both of those programs.
Thank you. Back to Michael on the LMI appliance assistance. Just how is that sort of getting out there, and what types of appliances are you providing assistance for?
Yeah, great questions. So we're going to focus on a couple different geographies with the available funding. We want to test this approach this year, learn from what works, and grow accordingly. We're thinking about, those typical household appliances that both consume a decent amount of energy and have, an impact on the quality of life and the quality of housing. So a good example would be replacing inefficient refrigerators with Energy Star rated efficient refrigerators, whether that's in a rental apartment or in a home that a low-income family owns.
Great, thank you. Let's move to Adam. When it comes to the electric vehicle funding, can you give sort of a breakdown as to what funds are going into which category?
Sure. Going forward, the majority are going to continue going toward Drive Clean rebate. We are looking to fund the fleet studies at a pretty significant clip, about $7 million per year over the next few years, which we see as a really cost-effective way to get fleets ready for this transition. And we have a lot of electric trucks coming our way with the Advanced Fleet Trucks rules, and we expect this to really help fleets be in a position to take advantage of that. And then we're putting a pretty significant additional amount toward the truck voucher program as well to then help them go ahead and purchase those trucks. That's the majority of the funding over these next 3 years.
And it was mentioned in the document that there are funds also dedicated to mobility issues and tax.
Yes. So that is a continuation of some funding that we have been allocating, and through our Clean Mobility program. We expect the second round of that program to be going out this year.
I'm sorry, this year you said?
Yeah, sorry, 2025.
Thank you. Sorry, I still have a bunch more questions here. I don't know if others had submitted questions or if I should just keep going.
The way that we've got it, Connor, you've got the floor. We do have a couple of questions that folks have submitted over Q&A, and we'll get to those after you finish.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ron. I guess my next questions are for James around the equity and climate transformation resource. I'm curious as to how this relates to, or if it at all relates to the Energy Equity Collaborative.
Thanks, Connor, for the question. We did consult with the Energy Equity Collaborative to provide feedback on the research areas that we have that are out right now in our program opportunity notice. So we made sure to connect with them and incorporate their feedback.
And will they be engaged sort of going forward as this develops?
Yeah, so as projects, pilot projects go forward, we will be returning back to the Energy Equity Collaborative to provide updates on how those projects are progressing. And the nature of this research is such that we encourage community partnerships with research organizations. So in our program opportunity notice, as you know, the Energy Equity Collaborative is made up of organizations that could also be eligible to participate in the research program. We did solicit their feedback in advance, so they don't have any particular inside knowledge. So they're all eligible to potentially be applicants as well as other organizations that aren't part of the Energy Equity Collaborative.
Great, thank you. Next set of questions for Vlad around the scoping plan. It's mentioned in the document that these funds could go towards potential studies for a clean fuel standard, and I was wondering what the plans are there.
Vlad?
Yeah, maybe we can come back to Vlad for that specific question.
I had a couple more in there, but yeah.
Great.
And then next is for Adele, specifically on the in the workforce section around the support for wraparound services in disadvantaged communities. Can you maybe explain how that would be administered, how folks would be able to access that support?
Yeah, good question. So we have a lot of different training partners that provide career pathways training for individuals that are entering the clean energy workforce. And typically, as you know, Connor, that involves soft skills training, technical skills training, job placement assistance. And we work very closely with the training organizations to ensure that the individuals have the support and services they need to do well in the training. And it's typically a community-based organization or another organization that has access to and information on what social service programs are available for things such as housing, food security, transportation assistance, mental health assistance. So we look at those options first as part of every training project. And if there's a gap, we use some of these funds to fill in the gaps. Typically, it's transportation issues. Sometimes it's help with childcare services. We've provided support in the past, for example, to help people get driver's licenses for driver's education. So it's really trying to figure out what those gaps are. Does that make sense?
It does. The training organizations, is there like a list of them that we can access to see who and where they're located?
Yeah, we have a great list of sample projects on our website. I'll send you a link. A lot of the different training providers under one of the specific solicitations that focuses on career pathway training. Happy to provide that.
That'd be great. Thank you. I guess I'll go to Ansel. So the community-based DAC funds, it indicates on the document that there's no funding in the coming year, but maybe I think the next round, there will be funding. Can you explain
Yeah, so
why we would be holding off this
it
year?
would be a new initiative to support under-resourced community-based organizations with that capacity building piece. We are working with community-based organizations through the collaborative and the expansion of the collaborative in the upcoming new year. So doing a proper solicitation with increased reach to additional community-based organizations.
Thank you. On the advanced fuels, I apologize, I didn't catch your name.
Hi, yeah.
Nice to meet you. Are any of those funds envisioned to go towards hydrogen?
No.
No.
Yeah, those are for the biofuel stock production. So such as advanced sustainable aviation fuels, we see a lot of interest to produce SAF in New York, and also there's a pretty big market in New York as we have probably one of the 3 busiest airports in the region, and there could be potentially some feedstock production for renewable natural gas. Those are considered 2 types of fuel, and there could be other types of renewable fuels that we can produce from the biomass in the areas that electrification will be hard and hydrogen may not be.
Thank you.
Right, so Connor, I do think that we are going to shift, maybe you can provide the rest of your answers, questions by chat, and then we'll follow up on them so that we can go to some of the people who are on the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have just one more question if Vlad does come back on. But...
Great, we will definitely circle back to that. So thank you, Connor. So from the Q&A, we did have a question that came in, a couple questions from Mr. Roger Kayaza. The first was related to reductions that New York is experiencing from the emissions. So he says that annual New York RGGI emissions have averaged over 29 million tons over the last 3 years. That's a number cited from the EPA Clean Air Markets Data Division. And then there was a reference to NYSERDA's own Table 2 from the operating plan amendment, which includes a summary of expected cumulative annual program benefits through December 2023. And some quick math there. The reductions observed were stated at $582 per ton. And then that's an estimate, if you reuse that figure, could cost New York up to $17.1 billion. So the question is, how do you address the need to make the necessary reductions to meet the RGGI goals relative to the proposed investments recommended in the draft plan? So I'm happy to take this one and provide as best an answer as I can. So RGGI itself is a cap and invest program for the power sector, and then proceeds generated from that program are then invested across multiple sectors by NYSERDA in order to help us achieve our market transformation that we're really trying to get to align with the goals of the Climate Act. So we certainly not only seek to invest in programs that are providing those really low-cost carbon reductions, but also pursue the full complement of carbon reduction strategies across multiple sectors. So we're trying to use these funds not only through direct investments, but also to complement other funding sources that NYSERDA has access to, and to really just leverage as much as we can to have the biggest impact. So we are looking to drive some of those costs down, and NYSERDA does post on the regular our RGGI status reports that offer more information about the carbon benefits associated with each of these programs and the budgets associated with each. So I'd point anyone who's interested to learn more about those impacts to NYSERDA's website, and those details posted there. Hopefully that answered the question. Please feel free to submit a follow-up.
I'll just add on a bit to that, Frank. It's Anthony Fiore, the Chief Program Officer here at NYSERDA. I just note that RGGI is only one piece of what we do, and one of our goals is really to catalyze private investments through market animating type of interventions and drive down the cost of carbon emission reductions from a variety of technologies. So it's not really our assumption that New York State will need to pay for all of the greenhouse gas emission reductions to meet our goals. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. And moving on to the next question, also submitted by Roger. It says, state agencies responsible for a reliable energy system agree that wind, solar, and energy storage systems need a new dispatchable emissions-free resource, DFR, to account for low resource availability during periods of extended light, wind, and cloudiness. Are any RGGI-funded projects addressing the feasibility of this DFR technology? Anthony, would you care to respond to that?
Yeah, sure, thanks. Look, NYSERDA is working in partnership with the Department of Public Service and exploring a variety of technologies and their potential contribution to a 0x40 grid. And per the Public Service Commission order, we are preparing a 5-year petition for our innovation and research portfolio for near-term filing, which certainly could be complemented by RGGI funding in the future.
Great, thank you for that. All right, pausing briefly. See, we've got another question. This came in real time from Chris Wenlin. It says, do you anticipate dedicating any RGGI funds towards nuclear expansion to support New York State economic development and decarbonization goals in the plan? Thanks.
Currently, there's not any RGGI funds for that. I think, we have the blueprint out now. We're compiling the comments that we're receiving back on that. And I think that will inform what we do going forward. So not in what's being presented today, but certainly could be something in the future as is informed by the comments that we get and finalization of the blueprint.
Thank you for that response. No other questions are here in the Q&A chat. So Connor, I think you had a couple of others, and I do believe we've got Vlad back on the line if you'd like to restate the question.
Great, thank you. So Vlad, it was just regard to scoping plan implementation. I just had a few different questions. First one was around the clean fuel standard. I'm just wondering what might be in the works there. And then I guess also related in terms of studies for gas system planning and, well, yeah, I'll stop with those two and then have a follow-up.
Yeah, so the description kind of that's provided in the ops plan op plan describes a range of types of categories we might explore with this funding. NYSERDA does explore a wide range of solutions to achieve emission reductions consistent with the Climate Act and as reflected in the guidance that we've seen in the scoping plan. RGGI funding is not currently funding clean transportation standard related studies, though. As you noted, it's called out as potentially eligible, but there's no funding going to that purpose at this time. I believe that's likewise the case on gas transition. But again, those are obviously substantial areas for exploration, potentially for consideration, that were included in the scoping plan. And so wanted to make sure that that those funds are available for that if we choose to embark on those efforts.
Great, thanks. And that may be the same answer here, but I also noticed that Captain Invest was listed there as well. Are there any active additional studies coming out that we can anticipate before the regulations are proposed?
The analysis that was previously published, the pre-proposal analysis, was supported in part by RGGI dollars under the scoping plan implementation bucket, and we would and the ongoing analysis in support of that is also being supported with this account.
Thanks. And then finally, my last question is, has there been any work around guidance documents for other agencies and authorities when it comes to CLCPA implementation? In particular, around section 7.2, 7.3 of the climate law?
I don't think I'm the right person to speak to that, and it's certainly not being done under this particular bucket, but maybe if there's others that are better positioned to answer that question, I can maybe turn it over to them.
7.2 and 7.3, I believe, have to do with state agencies not only leading by example in their own operations, but also making sure that their external facing policies and programs also align with the Climate Act. So, on that front, I guess I can speak to what is being done on the leading by example. There's a number of initiatives aligned with Executive Order 22, which was put out by Governor Kathy Hochul to really direct state agencies to align their buildings, vehicle fleets, and procurement with a lot of the goals of the Climate Act. So there's an interagency group that has been working and meeting on the regular to really clarify how agencies can be taking stock of all the inventory that they have and looking how to be responsible stewards and improve to electrify, go more efficient, et cetera, across the full landscape of opportunities. To the external facing policies and programs, I know that at least while the Climate Action Council was active, there was a decent amount of discussion during those sessions that talked about reorienting the full portfolio of agency offerings around these policy themes that are put forward in the Climate Act, pursuing decarbonization, equity, et cetera. So that's a sort of a broad statement in response to your question. So we're working on it and happy to follow up with additional details if you want, Connor.
Great, thank you. And that's all I have. Thank you for the additional time and really appreciate all your answers.
Okay, thank you.
A few questions.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christina Prasad from Advanced Energy United. I'm joined virtually by a colleague, Michael D'Angelo, is also on the line. And we just had a couple of questions. Following up on RGGI, I know we threw around like a lot of numbers today, but do we have a dollar amount that RGGI has allocated for 2025?
Yes. We do, yeah. That's presented in Table 2 of our operating plan amendment, which is what we're meeting here today for. And the total amount of proceeds that we're investing for the fiscal year 24-25 is $436 million. And that, again, is embedded with some other complementary figures on Table 2. Showing cumulative revenues and program funding allocations.
Thank you. And the other question I had, and I'm not sure if anyone's going to be prepared to comment on the Solar for All program and the status of the work plan. and where that is with the EPA.
What I can say is we provided a work plan to EPA. They've approved the work plan. There's a few modifications that we're making to it to account for some of their comments. So almost there.
Okay, and in terms of timeline, there is this pressure to get it done before January 20th, if at all possible. That timeline is looking like we're gonna get it done in the next, okay. Thank you, that just helps us sleep a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you very much, and really genuinely thank you for those questions. Really appreciate the engagement from folks here in the room today, as well as those that joined remotely. That concludes the discussion segment. We'll probably advance one more slide. We can talk about next steps, what you can expect following this session today. So many of you already have a copy of this, but if you don't, the draft operating plan amendment is available from NYSERDA's website at the link on the slide. We are taking questions. We're open for business now. There is a special email address that NYSERDA has, regiprograms@nyserda.ny.gov. We will take this, any questions, comments, feedback. That's going to be open through December 23rd, so immediately now until Monday, December 23rd, and that will keep us on track to, in January, provide NYSERDA's Board of Directors with our plan for consideration and approval during that meeting. So with that, I want to say thank you all for your participation, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye for now.